Make sure you stick around to the end of this video because Mitch and Move Pain Free have an offer just for you. Welcome to the first episode of the Fuzed Life podcast, where we host guests with specialized experience and insight in the world of back pain. Today's guest is an exercise scientist with a degree in movement science and a specialty in slow motion assessment, who created his own program called Move Pain Free at the age of 24. So without further ado, Mitch Van Beek from Move Pain Free. Mitch, thanks for being the first guest on the podcast.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here and talk about back pain and movement and how we can mix the two and get results.
Absolutely. So the reason that I reached out to you is because my subscriber base basically has one thing in common, and that's back pain. Like most of Americans, at one point in your life, you're going to have some back pain. And what I can't provide to them is professional answers. And that's where you come in, Mitch.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
let me talk a little bit about, let me have you talk a little bit about movement science and how it's important in not only preventing back pain, but maybe relieving some of the back pain these people have or possibly eliminating.
Yeah. So I'm not a doctor, but what I specialize in is slow motion assessment of people's movement patterns just to see where there is a lack of energy transfer through their body that could be resulting in back pain. And just to go into a little bit about my background of back pain, that's what I was about to say. I grew up with back pain from the time I was pretty young. So I actually remember not being able to jump on the trampoline with my friends because my back hurt. And you could ask a few of my friends about that, and they would remember it too. And then moving forward, played all the sports, played football in high school and college, and did all the normal training stuff, all the normal PT stuff for my back pain. And it just never really clicked. Nothing ever really lasted. So I was studying exercise science. I started to dive into how the body should properly function. And along that path, I found that the people who don't have back pain move a certain way, and the people who do have back pain also move a certain way. And we can break down those movement patterns with slow motion movement assessment, and we can diagnose and create a plan to fix that. So that's just a little bit about my experience with back pain and my journey, just in some cliff notes.
Okay. So that pain must have been a driving force because what's impressive to me is you created an entire program by the age of 24. So as soon as you got that degree, you started grinding on this. So that must have really been the driving force. And can you tell us a little bit more about that program?
Yeah, so the Move Pain Free program is what I like to call movement-based training. In our conventional world right now, what we mostly do is lifting-based training. So I like to think about the body as a car. Cars have forward, cars have reverse. You use forward about 99% of the time, if not more. You use reverse 1% of the time, if not less. And our forward movement in our body is also our 99. Our lifting gear is our 1% or less. And so what I try to do now is train people to move in their training rather than train people to lift in their training. And that's just around the idea that we need to train for what we actually do. And it all started with back pain. I had back pain, so I needed to discover or create exercises that would promote space and alignment and strength in my back without actually promoting the lifting pattern, which would be the opposite of movement. So that's what the program is based around. Obviously, we're going to use slow motion technology to break down movement patterns and then create a plan. So it's just pairing technology with actual natural movement. So it's the advanced and the most traditional things we can think of, and we're pairing them together to get people out of back pain.
Right. And with the slow motion, that makes sense because you see it in sports trying to get the calls right. So now we've reverted to slowing the film down, seeing exactly what happened. That's exactly what you're doing. So I really like that concept. Um, is this program, is it a standalone program? Would I just do this, or would you recommend doing your program with a stretching program, with yoga, or does it differ with everybody?
So what you'll find actually is the program is a full body approach. It's a full system approach to movement. So it'll feel like stretching. It'll feel like weight training. We mostly do body weight stuff, but there are ways to load the movements correctly so that you're not hurting yourself or hurting your back doing it. So, and then it'll feel like that yoga vibe, uh, but obviously with great attention to our movement quality. So you don't have to pair it with anything, but what I tell people is you can pair it with anything. It's a great addition. It's a great supplement to your weight training, to your running program, to your yoga. It's just a great thing to have a movement practice, a specific movement practice in your training, just to make sure you are moving well, not promoting compression in your spine and dysfunction in those joints.
Okay. So did you evolve from, were you a weightlifter? Like, so I know when I went to high school, yeah, I mean, when you go to gym class, when you train for sports, they send you to the weight room. So were you a weightlifter and then kind of transitioned to this after the back pain?
Yeah. So I played college football, like I said earlier, and obviously weightlifting is going to be a huge thing in that because you have to be bigger, faster, stronger. But what I ran into was at the end of my football career, I couldn't even run without hurting my back. Uh, I would be on the sideline at a game or at practice and be like, "Oh, what is going on? I'm 22 years old or I'm 21 years old and my back pain just killing me." And when it would get cold, I'm sure everyone else here has experienced this. When it gets cold, it gets worse too.
Yeah.
So really started to dive into these movement patterns that we're training our body in, the lifting patterns versus the movement patterns, and learned from a lot of different sources, and then eventually put my program together, and it's been working great. We've been getting great results, and tested it on myself first, right? Because I wouldn't want to put anyone through something that I haven't done myself. And I feel great. We were just talking before this. I was getting some movement in right before, just to make sure my body was feeling great, my head was clear to talk. So it's changed my life, and it's changed other people's lives as well.
So it seems like two of the main points with your program are going to be increasing the efficiency of how your body moves and then longevity, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what I really like to compare it to is our body is our tool for movement. And when we think about tools in general, I like to compare it to a hammer. So your hammer is your tool for pounding nails and tearing them out if you use the claw. So just like our body can move and lift, the hammer can pound and tear them out. So if you use that hammer correctly, it's going to last for years. I don't think I've ever broken a hammer using it correctly. But if you flip that hammer around, start using the handle, or you even hit it with like the side of the hammer head, the hammer will still probably get the job done. You'll probably be able to hammer a couple nails in, but it's going to break down quickly. So that's exactly how I think about the body. Your body is your tool for movement, and there's a correct way to use it. And that's what we have deciphered using slow motion technology. So when we use our body correctly, it's going to last for years. If we don't use our body correctly, it's going to start to break down. We're going to start feeling that pain. And that's what we see in people who are coming to us with back pain, back issues. We can see the small movement errors, we call them.
Right.
It's no one's fault, but there are issues with strength or issues with alignment, and we can correct those so that we bring you back to your body's natural design and how it's designed to move. And that will increase longevity, that will increase your efficiency of movement. Exactly.
So having said that, we actually did test your program out a little bit, and I sent you a video so you could perform a movement assessment on me. And I will put that video on the screen now.
Welcome to an exclusive Move Pain Free movement assessment. I'm recording this before Mark and I hopped on, so I hope you're getting a ton of value out of the conversation and finding all the answers you need. Before I dive into Mark's specific movement patterns, I want to give you a visual of the 3 pillars of pain-free human movement that we use at Move Pain Free to coach you toward using your body the way it was designed and start moving without back pain. First off, the 3 pillars of pain-free human movement are skeletal alignment, muscular tension, and joint access or space in your joints. Let's take a quick look at each of these. Skeletal alignment refers to how our skeleton is stacked relative to itself, both at rest and during movement. When we look at pain-free movers like young kids, injury-free super athletes, and even 89-year-old ladies that can sprint up hills like this one here, we always see the spine, which is shown by the chest direction, aligned with the hips and the ankles, which are shown by kneecap direction. During a line standing, you'll see straight feet with the spine, hips, and ankles matched up perfectly with each other from the front view, and the hips will sit a bit behind the ribs from the side view, just to maintain those natural spinal curves. Without alignment, the feet start to turn out, the hips press forward, and we'll lose our natural spinal curves. During aligned movement, the spine will actually move from side to side while it transfers energy, and the hips and ankles will follow it in sequence. This brings us to muscular tension. When your muscular system is properly tensioned during movement, the spine will lead the action, and your hips and ankles will follow in a nice, easy, efficient path. When you lose natural tensioning, we'll see the leg rotate the literal opposite direction of the upper body when the foot leaves the ground. This causes issues with energy transfer, and when the body starts to compensate for this energy transfer issue, we start to run into pain and injury. The main way the body will compensate is by losing space in your joints. This brings us to the final pillar of human movement, joint access or space in your joints. Your joint capsules, whether in your spine, your hips, your knees, or anywhere else, are meant to have lots of space to move. When you lose alignment and tension in your body will actually react by lowering the space available in those joints, and you'll lose access to a lot of your mobility. We call this compression. But why does the body do this? Well, it's acting as a bracing mechanism. Your body has lost confidence that it will naturally stay safe, so it's going to lower the movement ability of each joint and hopefully lower the damage being done in the process. But what really happens is you'll continually wear away at the tissues inside the joints since there's not much space to operate, and you'll keep running into pain and movement issues. Now, let's take a look at Mark's movement assessment film, and I'll show you what we look at with each of our clients. Looking at Mark's resting alignment, his feet are turned out just a bit. We usually want the second toe to be straight forward, and what that tells me is his hips are pressed forward, forcing his femurs and his shins to spin outward, and his feet are turned out to compensate for that. We'll definitely pay attention to this when it comes to his walking and his running patterns. As far as alignment from the side view, you'll see a bit of a resting hip thrust pattern, which is what's spinning those femurs and shins outward, but it also tilts the spine backwards and puts a bit of compression into the spine at rest. That compression usually carries over to the movement side of things. Now, in Mark's walk and his run, you'll see right away his leg actually spins in the opposite direction of his upper body. This is showing a lack of tension in his movement patterns. A simple way to say this is that his body has some slack in it, and his lower body isn't able to follow his spine for efficient movement and energy transfer. Now, Mark actually has good spinal action while he walks and runs, so that's a good sign that his spinal joints aren't compressed into having no space at all. We just need to work on the resting and movement alignment piece and find some muscular tension, and Mark's movement will shape up nicely.
Thank you for allowing me into the movement library. and exploring some of the things that you have to offer. And one thing that I did want to stress is some of the things I'm feeling from actually doing the program over the last week. And one of those things is I'm starting to feel, so after I had my spinal surgery, when I would go walking, I would start to feel pain in my left hip and pain in my left ankle. I feel like my ankle was about to break. And I didn't take that as bad pain. I took that as good pain because what I thought is the surgery probably straightened out the issues I was having. So now the left side is actually getting pressure that it wasn't getting before, but was supposed to have before. So I'm actually feeling many of the same things with your program over the last week, but to a lesser degree, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and, hopefully as I continue the program, it will straighten that out and hopefully everything will feel like it's supposed to. I mean, that's what the program's designed for, right?
Yeah.
So I've gathered some questions from my subscribers, actually, if you don't mind me looking at my notes. And if you have time to answer some questions, I'd like to throw some at you.
Yeah, absolutely. Throw them my way and I'll break them down as best I can.
All right. Good deal. So the first question I have is regarding sciatic nerve pain and nerve shocks. So is there anything in your library that would focus on maybe reducing that or eliminating that completely?
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. So the guy that I work with, his name's Joe Comer. He's my business partner. He and I were in college together and he played baseball at the same school that I played football at. And one day in baseball practice, he bent over to grab a ball and his lower body, both his legs went numb and he fell over.
Wow.
And we had been talking, we're in exercise science classes together, just talking about these concepts of we need to have alignment, tension, and space in our body. And he came to me, he said, dude, something's not right. And I said, yeah, let's go through a couple things and we'll have you feeling better and you'll never have that happen again. And that's exactly what happened. So in our library, all of our exercises really focus on finding space in the body. That's the entire goal. Our body needs space to move. And when we're having these nerve issues, the nerve shocks, the sciatic nerve pain, we're losing space around those nerves and they're getting pinched off. It's like a hose getting kinked. And so everything in our library in one way or another is focusing on finding that space. We're going to have different exercises for different people because everyone's different. And that's why the movement assessment piece is so important. We will see exactly where the energy transfer blockage is, where you're lacking space, and then we'll create a plan. So yes, our program does focus on things like sciatic nerve pain and pretty much every movement dysfunction issue. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. So Joe bends down, he goes numb, and then you fix him and he says, okay, Mitch is a magician. We're going into business together. So
Yeah. But yes, kind of, yes. But no, he's helped me a lot too. We bounce ideas off each other, we argue, and we just want to make sure we have everything exactly correct. We're not satisfied with good enough, right? We've had a lot of iterations of this program and we've reached this. I think this is the fourth movement library we've made. And we have it nailed down now. It's it's nice. It's good.
it's solid. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's get on to the second question. So I guess this one is basically your program. How long does it take? Is it something that takes weeks, months? Is it different for everybody? Is it something that we have to maintenance over time, or do I do it once and I'm good?
Good question. So everyone's different again, but what we found is 90 days is that commitment period where you can go from broken down, you can go from the couch to a king in 90 days or a queen, king or queen. And that 90-day period is where we're going to assess you regularly, make sure you're on a new routine every month that's actually working on the pieces that are developing and still lagging behind.
Mm-hmm.
And you're getting very regular positive movement inputs. So it's that 90-day period where the rubber meets the road. We got to work, work, work. And it takes commitment, right? We always say this, the only people who don't get results are the people who don't do it.
Right.
And it does take commitment. And that's what I say to people who we're talking to about working with us. We'd love to have you, but it's going to be something where you need to talk to us regularly. We're going to be basically best friends that talk about movement all the time because that's what this relationship is. We're coaching you to become your best self, to become the best mover you can be, to become back pain free.
Right, right. And I get that when you say it's a program, but you have to do it. So, everybody has that friend where they're like, I bought this program, whether it's P90X or whatever, and it didn't work. And then you look at it and it's sitting on their counter with that much dust on it. Right. So, right. So you got to put in the work like everything else in life.
Exactly.
So good deal. The next question is basically that the most common back pain is low back pain, and the most common back surgery happens in the low back. So even if I've had a fusion like I've had L4, L5, are there movements in your library, even though my spine may not move exactly like it would without the fusion, that will help?
Yeah. So we talk about tension, this tension piece in our three pillars of pain-free human movement. So tension in our body is what allows our upper and our lower body to work together as we're moving. And so with lower back pain, that lower back is going to be that piece that connects that lower or that upper body and the lower body. So when we see lower back pain, a lot of times it has to do with a lack of tension in the body. We have the upper body moving one way, we have the lower body moving the other. And it's just because of slack in the system. So a lot of our exercises, or all of our exercises, are built around those three pillars of human movement. But the tension piece in those exercises, making sure that your upper body is organized with your lower body as you're moving so that it's a fluid energy transfer. There's no hiccups or there's no hitches in your giddy up. That's the stuff that's going to help us with lower back pain a lot of the time.
Okay. And that kind of leads into the next thing here where, I'm one that subscribes to the notion that if I've got a tight shoulder here, it may be pulling on my chest. It may pull all the way down to where it's now pulling me, just maybe minor, but now I'm out of alignment. And same thing with even a calf muscle or something may tug all the way up the body and pull me out of alignment. Um, do you kind of subscribe to the same thing? And will your program, would it help something like that?
Yeah. So I definitely agree that if there's one piece that's lacking, it can mess up the entire system up or it can mess up the entire system down. So that's again, I sound like a broken record, but movement assessment is so important. We have all these programs that don't even look at how you move. They just say, "Hey, this is the magic pill for this pain. This is the magic pill for this pain." But what we do, it's not a magic pill. It's not guesswork at all. We're seeing exactly what's happening. We're basing this in reality, and then we're giving you the movement abilities that you need to get out of pain. So just like you were saying, a shoulder lacking mobility or a calf lacking tension can throw you out of alignment, and then that's going to end up messing with your energy transfer through your body, and it will lead to pain, but not if you're working toward alignment, tension, and joint access or space every day with a movement based training program.
Right. So basically you've done the trial and error, just like you said, developing the library. You've seen a lot of clients, and you're able to kind of diagnose and troubleshoot and figure out, well, we've seen this in this person, that person. So it's kind of like you're getting to the point where I've seen it all type thing. The saying, not that you have, but that saying. So okay, interesting. So one thing that I've noticed is my left hamstring is a lot tighter than my right. And that's something I'm hoping to improve in your program. And I think I'm going to need to stretch as well. I don't think I can just do your program and it's just going to fix me like that. But that question was actually from me, with the whole tight muscle and everything. So yeah, that was an answer I was very interested in. I appreciate that. So the next one comes from a person with degenerative disc disease. So I do get emails about this from my subscribers. And they try to get advice from me, and I can't give professional advice, right? I'm not an industry expert, but I know they've tried things like creatine to try to keep the water in the disc, and different stretches, different whatever it may be. Do you have movements that would maybe help preserve discs and kind of limit the wear and tear?
Yeah. So again, I'm not a medical professional, but
Right.
from what I've seen and the people that I've worked with, degenerative disc disease is due to a lack of space between the vertebrae. So our vertebrae sit here and they are supposed to have this little bit of space
Mm-hmm.
for moving in 3 dimensions. But what we see with people whose discs are breaking down, herniations, degeneration, is their movement patterns are actually promoting a lack of space. And that's the third pillar of our program of pain-free human movement is joint access or space. So how we go about that is by helping people return to their natural alignment, gain that muscular tension that actually promotes space in the joints, and then eventually we'll gain that space and those joints or those discs will last longer, right? If they're already degenerating, there's not much you can do to bring them back to their normal state. But what we can do is increase longevity of them by stopping the damage that's being done right now, stopping the bleeding per se.
Okay. So one of the subscribers was born with an imbalance. So if you have an imbalance such as one leg longer than the other and it's been causing you back pain for years, are there things in your library that can kind of assist in bringing the body back in balance? And I'm actually interested in this because so I've never been diagnosed with imbalance, right? But what I've noticed is when I bench press, I've got one pec that's a little bit bigger than the other and it kind of carries the load. And it's actually on my weak side. So my strong side is my right side and the left side seems to be stronger for some reason. And I feel some more pressure in my left shoulder when I'm bench pressing. And I feel like that's a mechanical issue that could probably be fixed with your program.
Yeah, so just kind of talking about your movement patterns here in your movement assessment, your spine actually gets into the right side a lot more than it gets into the left. So your spine is probably just a lot more comfortable over in that right side. And then as you're bench pressing, you're pushing up, but you're rotating just a little bit. It's probably not even visible to the naked eye. And that's just going to put a little more pressure on that left side. And it's all diagnosable through slow motion assessment, right? So imbalances, the beautiful thing is with our program, we can focus on one side more than the other. So we do a movement called side bend reaches. So we'll just get you fully tensioned in the squat, and then we'll have you reach, and then your spine is going to bend into one side, and we're going to find all this space on the other side. And what we can do is just prescribe do a few more reps on one side because that's going to help you get balanced out, find that alignment piece of pain-free movement. And a lot of things, a lot of other programs, you won't be able to do that. It's nothing that's going to actually realign you.
Mm-hmm.
But we can see that in slow motion film and then tell you, hey, we need to work on this side a little more in this exercise, like 5 reps for every 2 or 10 reps for every 5. And it works great. From the people we've worked with, from what we've seen, we've always been able to help them gain alignment.
Okay, so this is definitely something that you've seen before in terms of, like I'm saying, maybe one muscle bigger than the other, which should be symmetrical.
Yes. Yep. And it happens a lot. And what we talk about is it's not always just your training your training inputs that are doing this. It's our everyday stuff as well. So in America, we drive, we sit on the left side of the car, but everyone leans on that center console. Their spine is getting stuck in the right side of their body.
Right.
And you wouldn't think about that changing your anatomy a lot, but it does. Your body will get more comfortable sitting on the right side, and then your spine will just have this slight curve over there, and it might not even be visible, but your spine will have more space to move right than it will left. So these are things that we can correct with movement-based training.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So our next question, so the person has low back pain and hip pain. They keep going to the doctor. Instead of the doctor really diagnosing it, they're just shooting them up with cortisone, and it's to the point where it's not even lasting a couple days. So is that somebody that should get started in your program? And do you have things that could hopefully, I know this kind of generalized, could help that, could help them fix the hip and the low back pain? Is it probably some sort of alignment issue or movement issue?
Yeah, so we could definitely help them. It's it's always going to be one of those three pillars that's off, right? It's going to be alignment, tension, or access. And typically, if it's one of the first two, it's going to be the joint space thing. And what I would say is with low back and hip pain, it's probably an energy transfer problem. And so alignment right away, that's what we always start off with. We'll get you aligned, we'll get you working in our, we call them starting positions. We've broken down how pain and injury free humans rest, stand, move. We're going to get you into these starting positions, get your body nice and decompressed and aligned, and then we'll start to work on the tension piece. So finding tension through movement from one starting position to another. And with the low back and the hip, it can actually be resolved fairly quickly, but then you have to keep doing it to make it permanent, right? It like I've said, it's not a magic pill. You don't do it once and it fixes it. It's not a cortisone shot that people prescribe. It's something that you're inputting into your body on a daily basis, and then your body will eventually be aligned, tensioned, and you'll have great access or space in your joints.
Gotcha. Okay. So we basically grew up in the same era with the same advice and kind of myths about weightlifting. And I don't know if this is a myth or not, but what I've always heard is for every rep that you do wrong, it takes 9 or 10 reps right to correct that. So with that being true, if that's true, how does your program, how would it fix me in terms of, let's say I've been walking wrong for the last decade, that's tens of millions of steps. How can you fix me in 90 days?
Yeah, so I think that has some truth to it, the 1 rep for every 10 reps. But what I think about as well is where our focus is, because when we're walking incorrectly, our focus isn't on walking incorrectly. But then once we switch our focus, we switch our whole mindset to I'm going to fix how I move. Your results will amplify with that focus. So once we start to focus and really dial in our movement patterns, your body's going to change a lot faster than if you weren't focused on it at all. So I wouldn't say we need to do, so if you've done 10 million bad walking reps in the last decade, I wouldn't say we need to do 100 million, right? It's more like we need to do a few thousand reps, which isn't a hard number to reach by any means, but with great focus. And that's what we're here for too. We're going to keep you focused. We're going to keep you on task, on the goal, right? Which is to move without back pain. And yeah, it's just wherever your focus is, you're going to see the results there. And I think everyone can agree with that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So it's all about cognition in terms of, maybe when I'm doing the bad reps, I'm thinking about I need to move the bar from here to there, and that's what I'm thinking about. But now that you're saying, okay, I'm focused on walking perfectly every time. Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I do want to add, it's not really something where you have to focus on how you walk either. Um, like our clients, we aren't saying like, hey, make sure you focus on how you walk today. It's more make sure you get in the exercises because those exercises are going to carry over to how you walk. So you wake up, you do your groundwork in the morning, you do your squat tensioning work. The second you walk out of that session, your movement's going to be changed just by the nature of the exercise. It's giving you those good inputs. Your body's going to say, I really like that. And then it's gonna try to stick it. And then you might fall out of it a little later in the day, but the beauty of it is you can just do the recoding, the exercises again, and then your body will say, I really like that again, and you'll hop back right back into it. So it's not something you have to focus on every second of the day. It usually takes 10 to 20 minutes a day. It's not a huge time commitment, but it yields really great results.
Okay. And this program is something, it sounds like to me something from 8 to 80, like that everybody could do this program. But what I would ask you is, when would someone get started? When does your normal client get started? Is it after they feel back pain? Is it when they see a family member have back pain? They just say, well, I better get started on this now. Or what are you seeing in terms of that?
Yeah, so the people that we work with right now are the ones already experiencing back pain. They're the ones who have a need, right? They need to start moving pain free so they can keep doing what they love. And we're working on building this awareness of movement based training is for everyone. And even if you don't have pain right now, you can work toward never having it by starting this program right away and just continuing these positive movement inputs. And like you were saying, it's great for kids, it's great for parents, it's great for advanced age groups as well, and athletes. The thing with our program is it's online based, and obviously I wouldn't want a kid, like a little kid, to be working online with a coach, right? That would be more of an in-person thing.
Sure.
And I do that all the time, right? I have in-person sessions with young age groups, parent age groups, and older age groups, and they're all great to work with. But this online program is more of a parent or older age group focused thing because they can learn online more easily. Kids need a little more guidance in person in real time. So that's what I would say about that piece. But yeah, it's definitely something that you can start when you already have pain, or you can start before you have pain if you have a family history of back pain and things like that. So,
Okay. So what, so for my channel, YouTube gives me stats. And so what I know about my viewership is about 50% of it is 45 and above. So would your program be good in preventing, say, things like joint replacement or things that older people may have to experience possibly in the near future? Could they avoid some of those things?
yeah, I would say definitely, just because those joint replacements are coming from a lack of alignment, tension, and space in the joint. So we're actually combating the causes of these things rather than just covering up the symptoms like a band-aid. And just another story from my background, right out of college, I had a degree in exercise science. I sold medical sales, or I did medical sales for post-surgery equipment. So I was selling equipment to people who just had the knee replacement, just had the hip replacement, just had the spinal fusion. And what I took away from that is I see this person walking into the surgery center, and you can tell exactly what surgery they're having just by how they're walking in.
Sure.
And I learned from that because you can always, or we can always tell what's going on just because of the movement patterns. And I really want to stress that once we start using our body correctly, the way it's designed again, your body will then have an environment to heal in. And that's how we would avoid those surgeries. We start to allow the body to heal rather than keep breaking it down step by step.
Hey, Mitch, I'd just like to, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I'd like to thank you for coming on and being the first guest on the podcast and really introducing us to movement science and exercise science, stuff that I wish I had 10 years ago probably would have solved a lot of my issues. So again, thanks for coming on. And I understand you have a special offer for the viewership, and I'd love for you to get into it.
Yeah, hey, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this with your viewers. And right now, this is for you, the viewer. Just for seeing this podcast on the Fused Life channel, I want to offer you a $300 discount off of our full 90-day program. Included is our full movement assessment process, personalized recoding routines, and 90 days of positive movement inputs just to help you get rid of back pain for good so you can keep doing what you love. If you're interested in that, just go ahead and click the link in the video description. All you'll have to do is click or type in your email, and then we'll send that discount over to you right away, and we can start working together and helping you feel great.
And Mitch, that sounds like a great offer. And are you on other social media platforms?
Yeah, so my main social media platform is Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, Mark will drop my Twitter at in the description as well. I post a few times a day, probably 3 to 5 times a day, and I just put out information about movement-based training, how it helps people get out of back pain, and just avoid just general movement issues as well. So I would really appreciate it if you would give me a follow on Twitter too. And then we're on Instagram, and I'll have Mark just link all of my social media accounts down there. Instagram is obviously going to be more visual based. It's going to be more videos, pictures, and so if you're a visual learner, go ahead and follow me on Instagram as well.
Right. And I can attest firsthand to it. The movements are real. The movements have helped me. Go ahead and follow Mitch on all the platforms. And if you have some sort of issue getting a hold of Mitch, you have my email address. Holler at me. I'll get a hold of Mitch for you. So once again, thanks for coming on, Mitch, and we'll be in touch, sir.
Yeah, thank you again, and I really appreciate it. It was really good talking to you.